Hello there. It is time for Art in the AM, and my name is Jamie. If you are new here and have not seen any of my Art in the AM videos, I am starting round 2 of what I have been calling the ABCs of art. And we're starting back with A. And I had a whole set of words for the first half of the year, and I have been doing just a little teaching and a little art inside of this watercolor book. And it is 140 pounds as far as the weight of the paper, which has worked really well for all of the different things that I've done. And I'm going to do a flip through in my journal of the pages up to this week. So the A through Z, the first part. But today I'm going to start back again with the letter A. And I decided to do something that, like a lot of the words during the first half of the year, sound kind of basic. But what I'm trying to do during the ABCs of art is to go a little deeper, to teach you a little bit more about materials, art styles, techniques, whatever it is. So the A word that I'm starting with this week, or this second round, is acrylic. And you probably are pretty familiar with acrylic paints. And what I decided to do was to show you kind of a range of acrylics, different kinds, and how you can use them. And I have this Explorer kit that I want to tell you about, because that is probably how I started learning a little bit more about acrylics. So tell me how familiar you are with acrylic paints. Is that what you use to paint with? Do you use something like these Craftsmart paints from, is Craftsmart, I think that's Michael's, right? Craftsmart paints. There are, deco art paints. I would consider these craft acrylic paints. And any of the little, tubes, the Craftsmart comes in the bigger bottles. Any of the craft paints, even the ones that are, they actually say Crafters Collection, and these are Hobby Lobby, carry these. But those are what a lot of people are familiar with, crafters are familiar with. That is acrylic paint. Does anyone know the actual definition of acrylic paint? Like, there are 3 things that are in, at least 3 things that are in acrylic paints. Does anybody know? I had looked up the definition of what is acrylic paint, and I'll go ahead and share that with you in a second here. But I was looking up the 3 different things, and it made me realize what some of the properties of acrylic paint are that we like and we appreciate. But there are other kinds of acrylic paints and different things that you can use with acrylic paints. So that's what I'm gonna tell you about. But let me tell you the definition. And I see some of you, your little picture up there that I can see on my phone. So good morning. Acrylic paint, here is what it said, the definition. It is a fast drying, water soluble medium. Well, that doesn't really tell me a whole lot. Yes, I know it's fast drying, usually between like 15 to 30 minutes or something. It'll dry much quicker as compared to oil paint, which takes much longer to dry. And I am going to show you a particular type of acrylic paint that is in the middle, kind of somewhere in between acrylic paint and oil paint. But water soluble, yes, we don't have to use like all the fancy things like we do with oil paints. I took oil painting in college, and all the things that you had to get with it. Acrylic, much easier because you just have to use the water. But that last part, medium, what does that mean, a medium? So there are 3 different things that are in an acrylic paint, and then I'm going to show you and paint an example of different types and then show you that Explorer kit. In the Explorer kit, there are, I don't even know how many things. I think there are like 30 things. So I'm gonna show that to you. But inside of an acrylic paint, hi Lori, hi Wanda, hi Kathy. Kathy says she uses all kinds. Yes. And she mentioned a couple there, golden and Liquitex. I'm going to show you a couple of those. So in acrylic paint, there's the pigment, right? I've never tried to make my own acrylic paint, but in my mind, the pigment would be like a powder. Like it's the ground up pigment of the, it's used in all kinds of other things too, but it's the color. It's the color that, and the pigment is probably in my mind like ground up, like a chalk, kind of an idea. And then this is the medium part. It says it has an acrylic polymer emulsion. Well, I don't think that in the definition of acrylic you should be able to actually use the word acrylic again, because it's still not really defining what it is, right? But think of it this way. The binder, the emulsion is like the binder. It's like the glue. It's the something that kind of holds it together. And it's, especially when it dries, all the third part, the water, evaporates, and it becomes like plastic. So if you have ever done any kind of painting and your palette is plastic, I work a lot of times on these cutting boards from the Dollar Tree, and they're silicone, I guess, or whatever. My paint, especially if it's thick enough, it will just peel right off there, right? Like paint skins, right? If you've ever done paint pouring, things like that, and you've used acrylic paint and you use it on some type of a plastic surface, it will peel up off there. You can use parchment paper, wax paper, some kind of plastic like this, anything like that, it'll peel up off. Porcelain, anything that would, and people will even use those in their artwork. But that's one of the things that we like about acrylic paints, is because they're waterproof and they become like this plastic, and there are a lot of different things that you can do because of that. So I'm going to show you a couple of different types of acrylic paints that I have that are fairly in the same color. I couldn't find exactly all of my paints that I have in the same color, but I'm going to take a drink of water here. I'm going to compare the Craftsmart. This is fuchsia to the Crafters Collection, and this is also fuchsia. And then I have an Arteza is one of the brand names, and this is pink. And so this is more like in a tube rather than a bottle. And then I have this little golden paint, which is quinacridone magenta. So fairly close. But I wanted to show you this one because it has a couple of different unique properties. And this little tube, this small little tube of golden paint, which I don't even think that you can buy individually. And if you know anything about the difference between this type of a tube in golden and this, I am pretty sure I bought this golden paint, and this was not when I first started painting with acrylics. It was after many years. This one tube of paint, I want to say, was probably $14, $16, something like around in there. And it's lasted me a long time because I don't use it very often. Whereas this little golden quinacridone magenta came in that Explorer kit. The Explorer kit was something that I got at Michael's. I am going to have the same kit, or as similar as I can find, in my Amazon shop. So once I kind of show you all that you get in the kit, if you are interested, just put Amazon in the comments, and I will make sure that you have that direct link to that Explorer kit. I think that it comes with like 30 things, and I think it was like $34. So if you kind of think about that, like this little tube of golden paint was like $1 because it came in this kit all together. So I believe in that kit, I got all 5 of these golden paints. So I got a yellow, a, my voice is very hoarse, a phthalo blue, a white, a quinacridone magenta, and then I also got the alizarin crimson hue. But what I wanted you to notice on these was 3 of them, oh, I didn't realize the white was, 3 of them say open. Open acrylic paints are in between acrylic and oils. So they're open and you can use them with water. They take a long time to dry. Like, I want to say that I have left these out on my palette uncovered, and the next day, like 24 hours, I was still able to use them. Can't do that with acrylics. The water evaporates. So somehow these maybe have like less water and something to extend the drying time. I don't know, but I only have 3 of these golden open paints, but they came in this Explorer kit. So if you would like to experiment and have a couple of those, that is an easy way to get those. It also came with, I want to say, at least 3 or 4 of these acrylic fluid inks. And this teal, definitely one of my favorites. The ultramarine blue, I've used that a lot. This one actually, quinacridone nickel azo gold, they don't even make anymore. So in the Explorer kit, they've probably put in something similar, but these are almost more like an ink. They're very fluid. They flow really easily. So again, if you wanted to have a little sample, a kit like this is the best way to go. The other thing that this Explorer kit comes with is all these different mediums. These little samples of these golden mediums. This one is a heavy gel matte. This one I've used probably the most. This one's a light modeling paste and a clear tar gel. I don't even think that I've used that one because I don't even know what that is exactly. I'm not even getting it open. Yeah, it's just like this clear thing that you can mix with the acrylic paints. And then I believe it also came with this little container of gloss medium. It came with more things, and I've used those probably. But right there, that's 7, 8. That's like 12, 13 different things that I just showed. And I'm pretty sure that it has like 30 things in there or something. So I'm going to put that in my Amazon shop, find a kit that is similar. If you wanted to try out some golden things, because if you have been using these types of craft acrylic paints, golden is like the next step up. And that Explorer kit was a great way for me to be able to explore some of those. If you've already been using these craft acrylic paints, which I still use those a lot of times, and you want to like move up a little bit from those, then you might try Liquitex. Hey there, Tony. Hey, Loretta. Hi, Shannon. Hi there, Sue. So let me go ahead and I'm going to test out a couple of the acrylic paints for you and just kind of explain a few more differences. And I have some different, I'll say trivia questions for you. So I don't know if trivia necessarily, but just questions to ask you. I'm going to use this little stencil that I have, and I'm going to trace this circle. I have 5 different paints that I want to test out and show you. So I'm just going to draw 5 circles on here. just kind of gives me a space to be able to try out some things. And I would like to know, this is your first trivia like question. What are the things that you think that you need to do acrylic painting? What are like the most basic things that you feel like you need to be able to do any kind of acrylic painting? The first one that I'm going to use is this Craft Smart. And the reason that these types of paints are inexpensive is because they have more water in them. They have less pigment and more water. So I'm gonna show you in this one here. I'm just gonna squirt it right down on the paper. And I mean, you'll see right away that when I'm painting that in, it's very thin. There's a lot of water. I can still see a lot of the paper on there. Oh, I probably didn't need that much paint. And it's very transparent, really. And that's one of the things that I'd say that most people dislike about the craft paints is they do have less pigment and more water. So they're not really going to give you the same type of coverage that a nicer acrylic paint, you know, like a Liquitex or a Golden. Now, I say that, and I'm going to show you a paint that is specifically made to be transparent. So I have a lot of extra paint here, and you probably already know that if I ever have extra paint, I will paint it on something. So I have these pieces of paper here, and I'm just gonna paint. You know, sometimes you might want transparent. You might want to be able, and I like transparent paints to be able to see what's underneath, but most of the time you want paint that will cover. And I'll show you, even though this paint is pretty transparent, and you can even kind of see the difference between if it's on paper or if it's on the nicer watercolor paper. Bring my water over here. Is that it still covers pretty well. It still, you know, wasn't super streaky. It's just that it's more transparent because it has more water in there. So that one is the Craft Smart, and I will label these. And this one is the Crafter's Collection. And you may have noticed, like when I put this one on here, it spread a little bit. It wasn't super fluid, you know, like a fluid paint, but it did have more water in there, and it did kind of settle a little bit. And I want you to see the difference when I put this one on here. And I won't put as much because I didn't need as much as I thought that I did. But you could probably see, even if I lift this up, like that doesn't have as much water in there. For the price, does anybody know how much the Craft Smart paints are at individually like this? I don't know that I've ever, and it doesn't say on here. My guess is they're probably like 49 cents or something. This Crafter's Collection is a thicker paint, and it is also 49 cents. So it's definitely thicker. And this is also a fuchsia. It's not exactly, you know, which is the other thing. You can buy fuchsia in 2 different brands, and it could look completely different. So I will show you. This one is does not have as much water. So what I'm finding is I'm using more paint to spread it around, even though it's a little bit more opaque. So I'm just going to get a little bit, just kind of like right from the top. I'm not going to squirt it onto, and see if that's enough. This is the paint that I have switched to for my paint party classes, is this Crafters Collection. I like the consistency of it. It feels thicker. The painters may use a little bit more initially, but they usually don't have to do 2 coats. Whereas the Craft Smart paint, you normally have to do if you want it to cover very well. So I like this Crafters Collection paint, and I will show you the difference. Look at just the difference between, this almost looks more like a magenta to me versus this one, which is more a fuchsia. Craft Smart is 79 cents. This Crafters Collection is 49 cents. I don't know that that's changed. I got this a little while ago, but I feel like it's maybe less than at Michael's then. So the next one that I'm going to do is this quinacridone magenta. Oh, I actually only have 4 paints to show you. I'll show you a different one. I brought out this tube of it. It's the very same thing in both of these, because this one did not show. Normally on golden paints, they have this little block up here that has lines, and it will show you how transparent the paint is. So quinacridone magenta is one that is made to be transparent. Now, if I had, this one's an open paint, so I don't want to use this one, but, and it doesn't even have on here, but like this alizarin crimson is more an opaque paint. And I don't know that, I don't have another one close to this one that would be able to show, but this, these lines on here show how transparent. So it doesn't change the saturation, how bright, how vivid the color is. It just makes it transparent. So you can do kind of glazes and things like that. So I'm going to show you this one last, actually. I'm going to do this Arteza paint, which is a pink. So it's not going to be the same as the these other two, the fuchsia, but I wanted to show it to you because it is in this tube, and it's a much thicker, heavier bodied paint. So you can see it's not dripping. So you probably answer back in the comments up there, what are like the basic things that you need for acrylic painting? I mean, I have them right here. This paint right here, this Arteza, is very creamy. Whereas this was, it didn't spread very easily. The Arteza is kind of a step up. I would say probably along the same lines as a Liquitex paint, as far as the, like how vivid the colors are and how saturated and everything. But this paint spreads much easier than the Crafters Collection. So if I was going to, you know, get a nicer set of paints and have like the entire set, I would probably do a Liquitex, an Arteza, something that is oh, I got a little spot in there. Might need just a little bit more paint. We'll see if I can spread this around. But a little bit of this paint goes a long way. I think I'm actually going to be able to have enough here to kind of carry it around. And I was able to, I didn't add any water or anything to this. And it gives me a really, really nice coverage. Like you can probably tell, just the coverage on that one is just, it's almost more like an oil paint. It covers really well here, whereas this one, Still, you can see through, you know, still a little bit more transparent, but not the Arteza one. So these paints, probably if you got a set, and here's what I would suggest with when you're just starting. What are the colors that, if you just wanted the most basic colors in something nicer like an Arteza or a Liquitex, what are the most basic colors? Like, what are the 5 most basic colors that you would get? I'm gonna take a drink of water while. And then I'm going to do the quinacridone magenta, and you'll see how vivid it is, but it's transparent. So what are the most basic colors that you would get? And I know that I only need a small little bit of quinacridone magenta. You can add water to any of these. Oh my gosh, look how I love quinacridone magenta. It's so vivid. But you can add water to any of your acrylic paints. And probably if I added a little bit of water, that would go a little bit further. So I'm going to add a little bit more paint, just so I can get like around the edges there. I think if I was going to get any set of colors, this would probably have to be one of the ones that I get. Like, I want it in golden, I want it in Liquitex, like any of the colors. I would want a quinacridone magenta. I like just how versatile it is, how vibrant it is. I love it when it's mixed with a little bit of water. It just creates, it doesn't take away from the intensity of the color. Like if I mixed water with one of these two over here, I would definitely, the color wouldn't be as vivid. And that's not the case, I feel like, with the quinacridone magenta. It really holds the pigment. There's just a lot more pigment in there than there are the other. That's really what the benefit of having a nicer paint. It goes a long way, and it doesn't lose its vibrancy or saturation if you mix it with water or a medium or anything. So Lori says white, black, blue. She would definitely get those. I really feel like you could even get by with just, I mean, I've definitely gotten just the colors that I've wanted to try out, like the quinacridone magenta. That was one of the ones that I got in golden because I knew that I would use that. I could probably add a little bit of water to this just to smooth it around, but look how nice that one covers. It just like covers like really nice, more like this Arteza over here. And I can see some of the paper through there. I had it on there pretty thick. I didn't add any water to it. I didn't have any water on my brush or anything. But I will tell you, even just getting my paintbrush wet, let me see if I can show you on a piece of paper here. It'll react a little bit differently than my paper in there, but all I did was dip my paintbrush in the water, and there's still so much pigment in that paint. I mean, it's almost like a watercolor, right? And I can keep going and keep going, and it just feels like it never runs out of paint. There's just so much pigment in a quinacridone magenta and in that golden paint. Like, I can still keep going. And it really hasn't changed. I mean, I'm getting lighter values, but it really hasn't changed the intensity of the color itself. So I'm just kind of, I mean, there's still even just a lot of paint right there. This almost kind of like a peony or something. I don't know, like just this big, big flower. There was so much pigment left on there. Lori says that she would get colors that she would use. If I was going to start with just the most basic colors, I would do a yellow, and I would probably, because I like kind of a warmer palette of colors, I would probably go more on the warmer yellow that had maybe just like a little bit of orange in it. I would do some kind of a blue. You know, if you like more of the cool blues, or if you like a little bit more of the warmer kind of blues. You know, I really like an ultramarine type blue where it has almost a little bit of purple kind of in there. And then probably some kind of a red. I know quinacridone magenta is not a red, but I really like, you know, just the intensity. It's like a deeper red, and if I add the water to it, I can get the pink. So I really like the quinacridone magenta. And then probably a white. I think if you had those 4 colors, you could mix a lot of the colors that you wanted. Some people will, you know, add a green, or there's a basic Liquitex set that you can do a red, a yellow, and a blue, and then there's a green and a white. I don't even think it comes with a black, because you can really mix some certain colors. Like you can imagine if I mix this with a really deep blue, I'm going to get kind of a deep purplish color that may read a little bit more as a black dark color. When I painted, you may have seen my Statue of Liberty painting that I did the other day, and it's in my portrait book over here on the table. I used a dark Hauser green, not a black. You know, so depending on what colors you use next to each other, they'll read as a darker value, and you don't need a black. Here's what I would suggest, and I do have one more trivia like question for you. Here's what I would suggest if you are going to invest in some acrylic paints. Get just a small set like that. Get a red, a yellow, blue, and then a white. You know, and that Liquitex, you know, kind of a basic set like that. Don't buy like a whole set. Don't buy, you know, a bunch. If you wanted to do the Explorer set like I talked about, exploring golden specific paints and the mediums and things like that, it came with a great book on directions on how to use like all the different materials. You could do something like that. But even something like the Arteza, I only have this pink because someone gave this to me. I don't have a full set of the Arteza. They're just the ones that that somebody had given to me. So, Charlotte, I tested out I don't know why it said Charlotte on there instead of Char, and that's what I said. I was testing out some different paints. So I used a Craftsmart, a Crafter's Collection, an Arteza, and then a Golden. And those were the 4 paints that I used here. So I'm going to label these and have those in there. But that's what I would suggest if you wanted to try out and kind of upgrade from the, you know, the crafters kind of paint, is to get a set like that. Because then if you have a red, yellow, and blue, you can mix a lot of the colors. And if you have a white, you can do kind of the lighter values. And you can get pretty close to a darker value, even if it's not black. So really with just 4 colors, you know, the 3 colors and the white, you could kind of get started testing out and trying out a better acrylic than the craft, you know, kind of paints. So yeah, I know, Char. It was just funny that it came out as Charlotte when I usually call you Shar and I know you as Shar. Here is another question that I have for you that it may be one of the words later in the year, I don't know, but if you are painting with acrylics, they work on all kinds of materials. You've probably used acrylic paint on all of your crafting kind of things. It does not work, however, very well on anything that's very porous. So sometimes if you get wood, you have to paint something on the wood so it does not, it's not as porous. That's the first material that comes to mind, is that trying to think of something else that, if it's like a canvas bag, I've seen a lot of people painting on those. Do you know what you can put on those type of materials that are very porous that then you could put acrylic paint on top of it and it wouldn't absorb into the fabric or the wood? There's one type of product, I'll say product, that you can put on so that it doesn't absorb into there. But I hope that a couple of these things were helpful today to start thinking about if you wanted to use something different than the crafter's acrylic paint. You may have someone who would have even some paints that you could test out, or you could just get a basic set of a couple of colors to try out. And I think that you'll find how much different they are than the crafter's paint, which work well for a lot of different things, but if you wanted to upgrade. So, oh, the denim caps, that's a fun idea too, Kellen. Oh, thank you. I kind of just like wore it down straight and it's getting like a little bit longer. So thank you. But I was just going to say the last thing is that if you had some kind of porous material, like a cap, a canvas bag or something like that, you can put gesso on the surface and that will create a barrier so that you can still use the acrylic paints and it won't absorb into there. And the water, your nicer like Golden and Arteza and Liquitex and paints like that would probably work much better. Your craft paints, they just have a lot more water in them. So I hope that this was helpful. Remember, if you are interested in that Explorer kit for the Golden products that would give you just like a little bit of all of these different things, I'm going to put that in my Amazon shop. So you can just put Amazon in the comments and I will make sure you get that link. And you can just test out like a lot of different acrylic mediums and paints and fluid paint and all different things that come in the Explorer kit. I'll try to see if I can find something really close to the one that I got, but I thought that it was a great deal for all the different things that I got in there. So come back next week for the next letter, which would be letter B in the ABCs of art. And remember, you can always watch the replays on my YouTube channel where I have a playlist of all of the ABCs of art videos that I do every Monday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. So I'll see you next week.